Welcome to today's Farm Life. I'm Doug Cunningham. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that can be confusing, can be complicated, can be sometimes or at some point very, very emotional, and probably all of those things combined at one time. Talking about transitioning the family farm onto the next generation. It can be a very complicated issue. Alan Hojer of Keep Farmers Farming is going to try to help us sort out some of those details. And I thought the very first and obvious question is, where do we get started?
You know, and that's a normal question I get every day. Where do you begin? And I simply say, let's sit down and have coffee. And you start there because it's all about talk and it's about understanding what everybody's going through, but also kind of what's the future, what's the vision, where do you want it to go? I'll spend a lot of time in the transition piece looking back, because there's a lot to be learned by looking back, but also that's where our confidence is, right? We're confident in what we've done. We're confident in the experiences that we've had, whether they were good or bad. If it was a bad experience, we know what we don't want to repeat. If it's a good experience, chances are when somebody brings up that idea that's like that, we'll want to enhance that because it was a good experience for us. So looking back gives confidence to everybody involved.
According to Hojer, who is a certified estate planner, if you have thought about transitioning the farm, you may already be part of the way through the process.
You know, it'll be important for me if I'm involved or if I get involved where it's somewhere in the middle. I need to learn about the operation and really where we come from, so I kind of have a process to put them through. And again, my formula is very much this. We're going to start by looking back, which by doing that is going to create a vision. Ultimately, we're going to get into a vision, which ultimately we'll get into strategies to execute on the vision. I can't just come into midstream and understand where we came from. I don't want to hold things up, but if I've gotten a call and I'm involved, there's a reason for that. It doesn't just happen by default, but it doesn't mean it's a bad reason. It just could be they don't know where to go from here or what the potential solutions are. But for me to properly advise or give them direction, I need a certain level of information. So there's no right or wrong, and people really are looking for, I say, some level of pain relief, just because it's our time here on Earth is very it's not infinite, it's finite. So depending on the age of the people involved, that'll drive the process as well from a sense of urgency. But overall, people want to do the right thing, but they just don't know where to begin. They may be in the middle and don't even know it. They just don't know. You only do this once. I have the opportunity to do it with several operations, so it's I can shore it up in a hurry, kind of where they are. But the key is we got to get started.
Hojer said before you move too far into the process, you need to educate yourself on the types of documents that may be used and what they represent.
Yeah, as far as the estate planning piece, because when you say about a will, that's all about estate planning. What are the proper documents to use? Whether it's a will, a trust, power of attorneys need to be involved. I mean, all these different pieces. The place to start is to get yourself educated, get yourself informed. What's the differences between the two? Attorneys are there to distribute law through legal documents, right? And when you walk into an attorney's office, they're going to ask, what do you want, right? That happened to me and my wife when we first went in. What do you want? I don't know, we're here. Well, here's some things to think about, go home and come back. People have, story after story, they've done that, and they just never got anywhere because they really didn't know what to do or where to start. Some attorneys are very good at working through the process. Many just want to put the legal documents in place. There's a lot of thought process should go into that to make sure that you truly have your goals set, what the big picture stuff is, then what are all the different tools to use to make that happen. I spend a lot of my time in education up front to make sure that they understand the difference between this word and that word, because you get into legal documents, words matter and how they work together. But at the end of the day, what's going to bring those parents peace? Because that's really what they're looking for. I'm not going to steer people to or away from anybody, but I will say there's a ton of estate planning in agriculture, not just in this state, in all states it is not done, and it needs to get moving forward. It's not a bad thing, guys. I've never seen anybody pass the day after they signed estate planning documents. It's really a matter of where do you start, where do you begin.
Hojer, who works remotely for First Dakota National Bank in Mitchell, said that if the transition is not done correctly, there are tax consequences that can be very, very costly.
Yeah, the tax piece is, in any transitional move we make, we got to make sure we understand what the tax consequences are, if there are any. But there's a lot of different ways to transition assets to mitigate any kind of tax exposure. A gifting is alive and well, and there's a lot of gifting going on, but how that works into the overall scheme of the operation. And I'm always watching out for the parents to make sure that they have a cash flow to live on when this thing is over and to meet the needs and the wants that they want. At the same time, I get heavily involved in the estate planning piece and how we are taking care of all the children, whether they're on or off the farm, and what are the wishes of the parents. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to be meaningful to them and give them the peace that they're looking for.
According to Hojer, at some point, everyone eventually realizes that the transition process needs to start.
I think the thing that scares people the most is they wake up one day and they realize that whether they're not capable of doing the level of work or managing what they are today, and they haven't transitioned, have they really transitioned the decision making to the next generation, their child or whoever it is? It's just a wake up of reality that I'm not going to be here forever. It's really a sobering moment for many when that happens. I've had fathers in their early 80s call me and say, we got to do this, we got to do it today, we got to get it done. And of course I'll say, do what? And they'll start into this, and I had a question back for him. So what was wrong with 79? He says, better than 81. But the point is, it just hit him at that particular moment. Proper time, in my opinion, for transition to begin is when we're in our 40s. We're in our 40s at that point, our children are in their 20s, right? Then we have time on our side. And so time is everything. When we have time on our side, we have more choices to make, we have more tools to use. If we're out of time, it limits the number of things that we can actually do. And the other thing I'd advise people too, when you're looking at bringing in the next generation, that's exactly the time we should be talking about their exit plans at the same time. Nobody's talking about exit planning out there. It's just kind of a concept. I'm very much challenging everybody, let's be talking about exit plans too. And if we have exit plans in place, what I found out, we have total focus on the business because people aren't worried about how they're going to get out. If you're captive into something, you spend a lot of time wondering, how do I get out of this? The more focus we can have on the business, the more successful we're going to be.
Hojer said the size of the operation does matter, but there are parts of the transition process that everyone seems to step through.
Yeah, I would say size matters, because at that point, if we got size in the operations, there's a different level of complexities in the business, but we probably have more people involved. It's probably more important than if people say, well, we're part of a 6th generation operation, okay, or a 5th generation operation. It may have been fairly simple till we got to a certain point, and then we get the spread of people. And all of a sudden we have 3 people we're transitioning to with families and everything else versus 2 to 2 to 2. You'll have operational growth, but we probably never had the complexities to this point. So it's not so much about which generation we're in as to what are the level of complexities we have to work through. That's been my experience.
Keep farmers farming. What great information from Alan Hojer. Share, pass it along, because it's information that we all need at some point in time, because situations like this are arising all over the not only South Dakota but the whole upper Midwest as we try to transition farms onto the next generation. Very complicated, very confusing, and can be quite emotional at times. So it's an interesting area to walk through. So hope information from Alan helped you walk through some of that. You can find a link to his information and his webpage up on our webpage at todaysfarmlife.com. Remember, feel good about what you do today, because what you do today is very important. Until next time, I'm Doug Cunningham.